Welcome, ladies and gents. This is Scotty Ze, coming all the way from Cairns, Australia, joined with Mr. Ed Stracher from Florida, USA, uniting the worlds today. Welcome, Ed. It is such a pleasure to have you.
Scotty, it's a pleasure being here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Now, ladies and gents, Ed is an amazing author and spiritual healer. If you're on Facebook, if you're on the internet, you've probably seen this guy out there. And if you haven't, welcome to the world. I'm going to get Ed to introduce himself in just a moment. If you haven't seen me out there, maybe for guys that are watching this on Ed's end, I'm a transformational adventure guide. I like taking people into nature and guiding you back into your heart to live from that space. I think Ed and I share that passion a lot. And in this little interview, we're going to be looking at what it is that wakes us up every day and gets us to live our passion, and the reason we work with spirit, helping people to get back in touch with their true nature. So Ed, a little introduction.
Well, yeah, I'm an electronics engineer and mathematician by training, Scotty.
Okay.
I invented a chip that was used in every bomb, tank, and missile in the U.S. and NATO, and that was in the mid '80s. And so I got to see who we were building all these bomb, tanks, and missiles for. I went to Russia. That was my first adventure. This is when Russia was in the '80s, big bad communism, Gorbachev and Reagan, the Cold War, and I was told that this was a really powerful, evil country. I went to Russia and saw there were really nice people. So I learned a little bit about the propaganda and how that works on both sides. And they just told us it worked on the Russian side. Okay. But no, it worked on the American side too. But not only that, but I got to study chess with the grandmasters in the former Soviet Union. And this was the best in the world. Wow. And I learned some things about focus, concentration, and brain power, because that's what chess is about. When I came back to America, I got to apply those things and some other talents like neurolinguistic programming, mental training for athletes, and then looking at all the spiritual teachings about how to control and harmonize the mind, body, and spirit. And so I applied that and developed a product line called Genius Zone series, which reading genius into the Genius Zone, trained many of the fastest readers in the world. I taught at West Point, the Air Force Academy, and so forth.
Wow.
And what I realized by doing things that no one could believe, and many of my students had read in excess of 50 pages a minute, some in excess of 100 pages a minute, could stand up and tell what they read. And I brought this to the school systems and demonstrated it on 4 continents. It was so beyond the standard norm that they just couldn't comprehend it. They could comprehend 20% improvement. They could comprehend even 200% improvement. But 20,000% improvement, they would watch, they would see. And people learned this with only a few hours. Kids learned it in 2 hours.
Wow.
But they just couldn't comprehend how to integrate it. And it was just too far beyond their boundary. But it gave me a little bit of insight of what happens when people see quote unquote miracles. And then people outside this would think that it's a scam, that it's a trick, and that it's not real. Well, I went through that when I invented the chip, because I had men twice my age telling me it wasn't possible to put a pizza box size of electronics into one little chip. Well, in the 80s, that was a miracle, but we did that, and now we know that's pretty commonplace. So then bring us here forward. I was a pretty prosperous author with reading genius and so forth, and then all of a sudden I hit the skids, and everything started going down. All my deals fell apart, all products, everything went wrong. And for a while, I couldn't understand what was happening. Now I understand I was under evil attack and had a curse. And people in the West don't understand curses. You lived in Bali. People in the East, they understand curses.
They certainly do. It's a big part of their lives.
That's right. They've got 5,000 years of spiritual wisdom. We have 200 years of blindness. And it's blindness because the reality is the Vatican conquered 3/4 of the planet, destroyed all the wise men, all the shaman, all the spiritual teachings, and put across the road and said, you got to read this holy book. Okay, so they, in effect, controlled and blinded that 3/4 of the planet. The only 1/4 that they didn't was India, China, Indonesia, and all the little satellite countries around them. So they kept the spiritual wisdom, which now we refer to as Eastern wisdom. But it was really worldwide wisdom, except it was destroyed on 3/4 of the planet.
Interesting.
So anyway, so I had this evil attack, and it brought me right to my knees. I mean, I was really on the brink of checking out, taking my own life. I said, I can't take this anymore. little trails of breadcrumbs, some great teachers at the right time. One of them was Raymond Grace. He's a shaman from Virginia. He showed me a few things about how to break curses and recognize them. I started figuring out it. I read a couple of books. One of them was DNA in the Sands of Time, showing how to reprogram our DNA to attract higher energies, to connect to higher angels. This is real. Okay. We are born with strand DNA, but the reality is we can expand our DNA. And if you expand your DNA, you can reach higher frequencies, higher capacities, resonate. And once you do, the angels say, okay, he's got the truth. He's not so stupid and blind like most of those earthlings. He's figured it out, and they connect with you. And this is how I beat the curse. So once I could beat the curse and connect to the higher, lighter angels and bypass the dark angels that had the curse on me, right, I could overpower them and remove the curse on myself, which is what I did. Well, then I learned how to use that power to energize water. Well, our body's 80 or 90% water, right?
Yes. So
I could energize people across the planet. I could remove their curses or even evil spirits across the planet.
Wow.
In fact, I remember one story where my neighbor came out and he was trying to start his motorcycle and the battery was dead. And I went out there, smiled at him, and I energized the water in his battery. He kicks first kicks.
Amazing. Now, I've got a plane going over. I got to get this right for a minute. In 3 minutes of an introduction, you spoke about creating microchips in weaponry, going to Russia, becoming a best-selling author and teacher of speed reading 20,000%, into a bad curse, learning about energizing water, and being able to heal yourself and other people all over the planet.
And expanding your DNA.
And expanding your DNA. And this is over the last, what are we talking, 30 years, since the 80s to 20-something years. You've been through this transition of working for, whether it was the government or subcontractors, but working in the weapons industry to now being a weapon of light, I guess, and being able to heal people through your wisdom and understanding of the ancients. That's a hell of a life.
Yes.
That is a hell of a life.
It is. But, well, see, it is and it isn't. Because in my Into the Genius Zone program, I talk about how we live hundreds of lifetimes. And past lives is something many Westerners don't understand or believe in. Because the Vatican simply took it out of the Bible and erased all references. It's not because it doesn't exist. Easterners understand it intrinsically. Because it's part of wisdom. In the West, again, for the same reasons I mentioned before, we've been blinded by that. But the reality is you've lived hundreds of lives. The wisdom from your hundreds of lives is in your soul. Our DNA is programmed that literally we forget all that wisdom when we come back into the next life and have to learn to count again. That's programmed in our DNA. It does not have to be that way. If you tune in and go deep into your soul, you can recognize and take on the wisdom that you learned in previous lifetimes. It's in your soul. This is why nowadays you see kids who are playing the piano who never got lessons and they're 5 years old. And doing other many incredible feats because it's coming through their soul.
And I feel that at this time in history, we're tapping in and we're accessing that information at a faster rate, and it's becoming more natural. Like conversations around spirituality and energetics are commonplace now. You meet the guy at the pub. It's an Aussie thing, I don't know, but you meet the guy at the pub and you're having a beer and he starts talking about Reiki healing or something. It's like, what the hell? 20 years ago, you wouldn't have even thought that would happen.
Correct. The energy is changing. The portals are opening up around planet Earth. This is 2012, 2013 now. The portals are opening up, which means both the dark and the light energy is more available to us. Both evil and the light and love are both accelerating. So you see greater on both sides. You see the evil trying to take over the planet and do things like 911 and lie about it and make it look like some Muslim terrorist did it, when most of the planet now recognizes who really did it. You follow? You see places like the Vatican, who were recognized for a long time as being the spiritual center. Part of that was because they killed everyone who didn't believe that, and they had them in prison throughout history. So they cultivated that loyalty, and now people are recognizing that is a facade. Now, if you look,
regardless,
go ahead.
there is a lot of negative stuff in the world, and there is a lot of people. I was really into all the conspiracy stuff for many, many years, and studied that and looked into that and understand that there is that crap going on. But what I'm noticing more on a larger scale is the positivity, the people that are stepping into the light and really focusing on giving their gifts and their passions to the world. And that to me is what's making the difference.
You got to be careful here. There's two things. Yeah, positive thinking is better than negative thinking. But the reality, as Buddha stated, and I state in my Reading Genius course, no thinking is better than positive thinking. That's another word for saying inner peace.
Absolutely.
Because positive thinking will just keep you as delusional as negative thinking.
Exactly. That's like mantra meditation. I've never really been into mantra meditation, although I've tried it. I was with the Hare Krishnas for quite a few years studying their work, and it seemed that I was putting something on top of my natural state. Rather than moving into a state of peace, I was putting that positive thinking, chanting the name of God, or everything's rosy. Sure. Rather than that, what I'm saying is, like what you were doing with the weaponry stuff, yeah? So you were creating weapons that would say defeat the bad guys. But who's the bad guys? It's all relative. Sure. But now more you're focused on being an instrument of light and focusing on helping people in a positive way, yeah?
Well, I would correct you there. And you got to be very, very careful here. Lucifer, which is often referred to as a devil or Satan, means bringer of the light. Okay. The Illuminati means the illuminated ones. So the light, which represents knowledge and wisdom, is great. But if light doesn't have love, it can be easily used to trick and deceive you. This is why higher and bigger groups talk about the light. They never talk about the love, because if you're aligned with the light and love of Jesus Christ, okay, it means for your highest and best interest. If they just talk about the light, it means I can use my wisdom to deceive and trick you. You follow? And this is the evil. All right? No one ever accused the devil of being stupid. Okay? Light means great wisdom. Right? So you got to be careful when you say just bring on the light. And I know this because a lot of people who come to me that have massive evil on, and they talk about following the light. Yeah, well, you followed the light, all right? It was the light of Lucifer. All right? So what Lucifer doesn't have is love. And we're not talking about just any love. You and I speak English. In the English language, there's one word for love. So you love your dog, you love pizza, you love your girlfriend, right? But the reality is there's different echelons. Even a mother's love. Mother loves her own baby, but she doesn't necessarily love the neighbor's baby or the neighbor. Okay? So loving your neighbor and being willing to give your life for them, regardless of whether you know them or not, this is the highest form of love which Jesus demonstrated. So you've got to have both of those. And that is really key in this day and age, because there's a lot of false teachings. And there's a lot of boring teachings that they want you to repeat. And this is, both of those are false. Now, you mentioned something else that's really key. You talked about following these mantras. Look, we've got a mental body. We've got an energy body. The energy body is centered in our heart. The heart is the doorway to our soul. This is where all our wisdom is. This is our connection to the universe. It resonates on the vibration of love and truth. Our head does not. Our head is full of deception. It can lie. It can deceive. It can be deluded. It can be tricked, no matter how smart you are. And any hypnotist or magician has proven that throughout history. The heart, truth has a vibrance. Love has a vibration that cannot be mistaken. So the mass misinformers, disinformers who want to trick you will always operate on your head. But in your heart, vibrationally, the difference between truth and a lie, no matter how cleverly crafted, vibrationally is as clear as black and white.
Absolutely.
But in the head, which tries to use logic, it cannot figure it out. They can trick you. So we always got to look at our heart. And when we want to change our energy, we have got to go into our heart, which means we need to quiet the mind. So when they teach you to pray using words in your tongue and your head, this is absolutely the wrong way to pray. This is delusional.
Yep.
Your tongue is used to communicate with other people, to prove to other people you're praying. But God represents the vibration of love and energy. So you don't speak out loud as if God needs to hear that. ridiculous. But this is what they've been teaching. But this is part of the false teaching that the Catholic Church, centered in the Vatican, has been propagating for well over 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So people are deluded by this, and it's very unfortunate.
We're definitely talking the same language here, and by the sound, we've both spent a lot of time in the Eastern philosophies. We were speaking before about living in Thailand. I used to live in Bali, live in Japan. Very well traveled. You mentioned 55 countries. Searching and learning about the wisdom that's there. And one of the things that's really worked with me is my adventures. Nature is the greatest guide. Like in Bali, in the Hinduism, they're always praying with the trees and the rivers. Japan, the Shinto religion is always focused on the natural world. Taoism from China, same thing. It's all focused on the metaphors from nature. And me personally, that's exactly where I've been in my journey, is connecting with nature to guide me more into this place right here, what you're talking about. Now, we both work with energy. We both work with the chakra systems as well, yeah, which Hinduism teaches us, where there's the 7 chakras in the color of the rainbow. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Green is the center point, the heart of our chakra system and where we are. Interesting that nature is green. I'm looking over my garden, my banana trees and fruit trees out the back there. It's green. Our heart is green. We're talking about a vibration here. The vibration of the heart is different. The vibration, like all color, our color, everything's a vibration, but light and sound is a vibration as well. The color, light from the sun hits that banana tree I'm looking at. It vibrates at a certain frequency. It enters into my eye. I then, in my mind, see the color green. That red over there, that blue, same thing. It vibrates at a different frequency and it affects me differently. But not only is that vibration moving into my eyes, it's also, another plane, also moving into my chakra system. So this, for example, is my running shirt, Nike on it, I just got back. It's a red color running shirt. I chose this shirt because it activates my base chakra. So when I'm training, when I'm out there running, it's activating that chakra. When I'm in nature and I'm seeing that green light, it is activating my heart. It is opening my heart, therefore allowing me to live and experience deeper from that place, from that heart center, to live my life. So we're talking the same language there?
That makes sense. I don't use those words, but it makes a lot of sense. And understand this. You talk about the Hindu, the chakras, the Taoism. Yes, they all understood nature. And here's one of the fundamental things that they understood. Everything has a spirit. The leaf on a tree has a spirit.
Absolutely.
Certainly the animals have a spirit, but the rock has a spirit. Your liver has a spirit, separate than the spirit from your ear and the spirit of your right foot. And so if you understand this spirituality, then you can start healing and doing amazing things with spirits. Well, of course, this is what the Antichrist, and by the way, the Vatican, the Pope, has 12 titles. 12 in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. All 12 of them individually add up to 666. Okay. So I'll let people figure out that for themselves, but the reality is this is what they didn't want you to know. They wanted you to bring you away from nature. But the reality is, as you're in tune with nature and Mother Earth, you get in tune with what we call our divine frequency, our divine blueprint. And you're connected both to the universe and to Mother Earth, and this is how we resonate on health.
Absolutely.
When we go into artificial environments and have artificial ingredients in our food, artificial electromagnetic energies around our body, we get outside, we go off the divine alignment, the universal energy field, and then we start feeling sick, we get unhealthy and so forth, and we can't understand it. When I do healings now, I just align people's body to their universal energy field, their magnetic polarity, and we each have a certain frequency, and they start healing naturally.
Absolutely.
This is what happens. It's as easy as this, and this is exactly what the medical professions, and of course the religious, powerful religious organizations do not want you to know. They do not want you to know it's this easy. But the reality is, that is the truth.
Absolutely. That's the exciting part of where we're at right now, is we're moving through a green revolution, where everyone's about, save the planet, global warming, reduce, reuse, recycle, all of these things. We're in a green revolution. But the true green revolution is a revolution of the heart. It's moving us back into that natural state of where we really need to be living from. Now, you spoke a minute ago about, and I love that, about the liver has a spirit, the ear has a spirit, the right foot has a spirit, everything has a spirit. And I like it. I always get images of nature. So I'm in a rainforest. In the rainforest, there are thousands of species of trees. I happen to be in the oldest rainforest in the world right here. All of those individual trees, individual spirit, together make the rainforest. It's their unity, that supports life in that forest. Same thing with our human body. I've studied a lot of kung fu, qigong, I've black belt in karate, I've been doing it for a long time, and I love it. And the whole focus of that kung fu, same as yoga. Yoga literally means union. I do yoga every morning here on my deck here. Yoga means union. Kung fu is about union. Our focus here is to unite like the forest. If we can bring the spirit and the individual spirit together into a harmonious whole, then we have unity. Then we have God that lives within us. And the center place of that resonance comes from the heart. It connects up to God. It connects down. I'm facing down this way. Connects down into Mother Earth. And then we express ourselves. That's why they say follow your heart, right? Do what makes you happy. Live your passion. Follow your heart. Exactly. But first we need to learn how to listen to our heart. We need to learn, and not only learn how to listen, but have the confidence and the faith to do it no matter what it says. No matter what it says. And by the sounds of it, you've lived this.
What you're talking about is...
Yep.
Yes. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on your words.
That's
You have
okay.
a little bit of delay. But yes, you're resonating right there. But the reality is, can someone really understand what that means? It's easy to say live from their heart, but I know when I teach, I literally have to get them, and I have to watch them and get them out of their own head, because when they think in words and they're talking to themselves, they're in delusion. They're talking to themselves. They're repeating these affirmations. They're saying live from their heart, from their head.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're not living from their heart. They're saying it from their head.
Live from my heart, live from my heart, live from my heart.
Like those masters, or like in yoga, and I'm a part-time yoga teacher too, as a hobby, but I do yoga passionately. Yoga, the purpose of all these asanas is to relax and de-stress the body and prepare the body for meditation. In that meditation, you empty the mind, and then you unionize with God. If your mind is not empty, you are not unionized with God. Yeah. So those people in the churches repeating prayers verbally, they're in their head, they're not unionized with God. It's exactly separating them, and they don't realize it. So what you're saying is exactly correct. And unionizing your heart with God, which means you have to remove the blocking elements, right? Just like if you want to drive forward in a car, you have to take the brake off first.
Yeah.
And so by getting out of our head, quieting our mind, and becoming still, then all your natural capacities, which I call your genius, open up. That's when we become psychic and can sense things from far away. We can sense energy. We can tune in. We can communicate with God and the hundreds of thousands of angels that are in between. So that's really magical. And I love what you say there about coming into the heart. And it's people like you that teach people how to do that is really powerful.
And it's a completely natural state, like being clairvoyant. Like I'm feeling at the moment the chakra on the top being activated. I have three spirit either side of me that are always with me, that tap me, that speak to me, that guide me. And it's only because since the age of 19, I've been really focused on the spiritual path. I've spent a lot of time learning the Eastern philosophies. And again, we had the conversation before this recording that we've been on that same path of, I feel, and I've actually seen visions of this when I was in Hawaii, of past lives of me being a monk, me being a priest, me being different seekers along the way. And like you were saying, we've lived so many lives over the what would you call it, lifetimes, I guess, that coming into this one, it's easy for me, and by the sounds of you, and so many people are waking up to this, that this is natural. This is as natural as going for a walk in the park, and that I can feel spirit and communicate with spirit.
Correct. Now, we've got to caution people. This is your job and it's my job to awaken to the fact that society, the governments, the educations will try to dissuade you from this.
100%.
They will create misinformation and tell you this is cacophony and slam and slander and all of this. Want to be able to because the last thing they want is the information and have you believe it, and they can justify it logically. The reality is, when we live in our heart, we understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And so when you live in your heart, that's when you're strongest.
Exactly.
Right? That's wisest. I couldn't understand this for a while when I first learned it because I'm a chess player, and I would play chess. And when my head would be busy, I would think, okay, if I'm thinking, I'll be a better chess player. But no, when
Exactly.
I would meditate and fast, I was a much better chess player because my decisions, which in chess becomes chess moves, were much clearer.
Yeah.
And I could work much better with an empty mind. Playing something as mentally intense as chess, I could play much better with an empty mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same as Kung Fu. I'm getting images now of when I was a very good fighter. I'm very good at
Yes.
combat and just natural at it. And I'm always staring at my opponent's heart, and my whole movement and thinking is coming from that center of my heart. And I'm not thinking, okay, if he does this, I'm going to do that. No, no, no. It's just a fluid flow and motion between us. Apologies, another airplane. But yeah, definitely. So one thing that is really apparent to me is in you, Ed, is that this is your life. Your whole life is all about guiding people. I call it guiding them into their hearts or guiding them into their natural state. By the sounds, it's similar sort of thing that you're doing. But how is it that you know that you have to do this? No matter what, your life is not about being a mathematician anymore or being whatever. It's every day you wake up and this is your calling and you cannot do anything else.
We all have to come from that. In my Into the Genius Zone program, I help people discover that. That's not a trivial process. When you've been brainwashed, and you got to understand that most of us, you grew up in Australia,
Yes.
I grew up in America, but still, we grew up with rectangular books, rectangular classrooms, rectangular black books or blackboards, rectangular TVs, and this is how we got our information. A rectangle does not exist anywhere in nature.
Yeah.
Does not. Straight lines
Exactly.
do not exist in nature. So everything that we learned and what we learned and how we learned was artificial. Even reading, which I know a lot about. Okay, I teach people to literally read down the page and they can absorb that page in less than a second. Our brains easily have that capability, but instead we're taught to read one syllable at a time with our tongue in our head. All right, so it's incredibly lethargic. So untraining ourselves, and you're in my job, untraining people, teaching them to unlearn and then relearn the natural way when they've been taught this systematic yet artificial technique for so long is not always easy. And I know I do, and I see many others encounter a lot of resistance because people don't like change. They want it easy. Reality is it isn't easy. You learn Kung Fu, all right? You've got to, break some knuckles. You've got to do some fingertip push-ups, and it's shut up and do it. You've got to learn to empty the mind and just do it.
100%.
And in Kung Fu, when the mind is empty, you are much faster, you're much clearer, you're much quicker.
Yep.
In reading, when the mind is empty, you absorb much more. People don't absorb when they read and their mind is looking at the page and it's busy. In fact, the biggest challenge that people have when they read, they're thinking of 5 or 10 other things while they're reading.
Interesting. Yeah.
The biggest challenge people have in life, Scotty, is they're thinking about 5 or 10 other things while they're trying to fulfill their goal or follow their heart or whatever it is. So their mind is so busy. And if they're living in a city in this artificial environment with all this information coming through these rectangular orifices, it's just not going to happen. And and most people have experienced when they walk through a forest, especially an ancient forest, there's a magical feeling that should be normal. Yeah. And it's called the universal energy field and this thing called Mother Earth connecting right to it.
Yeah. That
puts us back into our natural frequency, our natural magnetic polarity where we feel strong and where we feel healthy again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's to me, all the wisdom is in nature. All the ancients got their wisdom from nature. It didn't come from a book. It was from nature and maybe put into a book. But getting back in touch with nature, whether it's, and that resonance I was talking about the green, seeing green, I even noticed you've got green plant in your office there, artificial world, but you've still got your nature. And that frequency is constantly connecting with your heart and keeping you in that space. And it's easy to do. It's not that hard, but it does take some consciousness to be able to do it.
Correct. It does. Now, here's the other thing that we got to realize. We're in 2013. This idea of spirits, right? Albert Einstein solved and came up with the theory of relativity, not from a blackboard and pencil and paper, or they didn't even have calculators or computers in those days. He dreamt and the answer came to him. Yeah. And most people cognizant would say the spirit of wisdom came to him and gave him that answer, which then it appeared in his imagination. Nikolai Tesla, same thing,
Yeah.
right? Came up with all these incredible inventions, all right? He didn't come to them by figuring them out. He came by intuiting, tuning
Absolutely.
his heart and soul to the universe. And then the spirits of wisdom came to him and gave him those solutions. So this is the answer here. So when it comes to healing, for example, and I've healed people around the planet, you've seen on Facebook, 20 minutes, 15 minutes from all sorts of diseases. It's about entering the spirit world and working with their spirit to bring back their magnetic polarity, bring back their alignment to the universal energy field, and having the power to do that. All right. Once they do, they can heal from anything. The body's natural state is health. It is not disease.
Absolutely.
Pills will never bring you back to the body's natural state. They will throw off your frequency.
Exactly.
And they know this. They know this. Okay. However, it's bad business to get people back to health. There is no money in cures. They know that too.
Yeah.
There is lots of money in treatments and repetitive and addictive treatments. They know that. So it's our job to educate the people, is to really natural health, natural cures, and healing. We have to get back to nature, which means our alignment to the universal energy field. It means getting our body's frequency back, and in some cases, getting our soul back, our own spirit. Because if we go through trauma, if we go through disaster, if we get attacked by evil, it will try to steal your soul. And that's something that no doctor can recognize. It's something that I do all the time, and I see a lot of people that are helped when we restore what we call the fragments of the soul.
Absolutely. Back to the natural state. Ed, your passion and enthusiasm for healing and for truth, which I like to call truth, which is that the spiritual being that we are, is contagious and amazing. I thank you so much. How do we learn more? How do we get in touch with you? For anyone out there that wants to do some work with you?
Well, I have several sites, readinggenius.com for reading, geniuszone.com. I'm soon to put up a site, which is not up at the time of this recording, called Healing Genius.
Okay.
And I will be discussing that. And so people can go to those sites as well. They can go to my Facebook site, Ed Stracher Spirit Healer, or Facebook.com/Ed Stracher Spirit Healer. And they can send me messages through that as well. So I want to thank you, Scotty. I really appreciate your passion and your intuitive understanding of nature and spirits, which I know comes through your soul from past lives. Whether you recognize that or not, I can see it. So I appreciate and give you accolades for that.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, nature is my guide, and all kudos and hats off to Great Spirit for guiding me. And for myself, my focus here is just to be transparent for God to shine through. And if I can clear the debris, the river will flow. A bit of a river analogy there, but all I got to do is get the debris out of the way, and then the Spirit of God flows through me, which is a beautiful thing, and I enjoy it. But definitely, for any of your guys out there that want to connect with me, it's just scottyze.com, SCOTTYZE.com. And otherwise, what an absolute bloody pleasure, mate. Thank you. We could continue this conversation forever, but I'm conscious of other people's time, and you and I will after this. But anyone out there that is interested more in Ed's work or my work as guides and healers, please connect with us. This is the natural way of being. This is the natural state of being. And sometimes it's very easy to get in attunement or in alignment with God and with nature. And so please make contact with either of us and continue your journey, because we're all in this together. And the more we unite, the better. Let's be that forest again. Absolutely.
Thanks, Scotty.
Thank you so much, Ed. And thank you, guys. We'll see you soon. Cheers, mate.
Take care.